Hello, I'm famous tennis player of the 70s, Wally McWilliams, and this is a board deck and dice review of Scythe. Scythe is a, area control, resource gathering, battling, action selection game where you're moving through a map, trying to take the best hexes that serve your purposes for gathering resources, to put out buildings which will further help you. And there's a lot to explain in this game, so I'm going to start with what I see as the core of the game, and that is the player mats, although the map is very important as well, but the player mats are where you're going to be planning your strategy and all that. So we'll start there, we'll have a look at the board and some of the other stuff. It's not going to be a complete how to play run through, but hopefully you'll see some of the important ideas in Scythe, which I'll just come out and say right now, I absolutely love. I didn't get caught up in the hype for this one. I hadn't played any other of Jamie Stegmaier's games. I had Between Two Cities, which I thought was fantastic, but for some reason just didn't get caught up in the hype, was a bit wary, and now just regretting that really, because I really love this game. Let's take a look at the player boards, and because of the amount of space that takes, I'm not going to do my usual picture-in-picture because there's just I need all the camera space. So here we have a player board for blue. Now the top part of the player board is always assigned to blue, and the bottom part is randomly assigned, and they have all the same actions on, but they might be laid out differently. So you're meant to randomly assign these. I guess you could choose your top and then randomly assign the bottom, but you're meant to randomly assign both during the start of the game. So for example, this player board, on the blue one we have produce on the first square, and it's on the second one, and there's slight differences in, so on the blue one, deploy does not give you any coins, so when you deploy a mech you get no coins, but on this one here, if you deploy a mech you do get 2 coins. So there's differences there, and that kind of gives you a starting point combined with where you are on the map and what 3 resources are nearest to you. This looks really complicated, but if you just follow it through, it does make sense. The first thing to notice is that the player boards give you your power for your faction or clan. So the workers may swim across the rivers. The workers are the blue meeples. So there's 3 types of character kind of people, models that people have. They have the character, which is you, that can move, that can start battles, initiate battles, that can scare off other workers. You have the workers, and there, wherever you put anything on the map, there has to be a worker there. So if you're putting resources out or you're harvesting resources, there has to be a worker there. If you're deploying a mech or a building, there has to be a worker in that space. And then mechs and workers upgrade at the same time as well. So they're all slightly different. Mechs can carry workers and workers can carry resources. So the next thing is, this tells you how much power you start with. Power is used mainly in battles, but in some encounter cards, which we'll come on to. How many attack cards you start with, and then down on the bottom there's a little number on the top right which tells you if you have the lowest number you're going to be starting, and then you have 2 objective cards. I think that's fairly standard across all of them that I've seen. I haven't seen the expansion characters though. 2 popularity, which again is kind of a currency you can spend in the game, but also a multiplier for end game scoring. So if you have more popularity at the end, there's three levels, it goes up to 18. Once you pass 6 you're onto the top middle level. Once you pass 12 you're onto the top level. You will score more points, more coins for everything basically. And then how many coins you start with. So you would start with 5 coins. Coins can be hard to come by depending on your strategy. What you are going to be doing is taking your action selection pawn and choosing one of the columns, and then you may take the top action and you may take the bottom action. You don't have to take any action, but you must move your pawn every time, and that's because you cannot do the same thing twice. So let's just work through them. They're going to be in different orders and different pairs on every kind of action board, but it will give you a good idea. So the first one is produce. Produce lets you produce on 2 hexes initially, and you produce as many times as you have workers on that hex. So if you have 2 workers on a hex, you produce 2 of the resource type. The resource comes in these little tubs. There's wood and metal. Wood is used for buildings, metal is used for mechs, and oil and food. And oil is used for upgrading your player board, your powers, and food is used to enlist recruits, which doesn't affect the board directly. Recruits are these little circles down here, which we'll talk about. So currently I produce 2, and I also have a building in each one as well. This is the mill. If I get the mill out, it reveals a little square that the mill also produces on that action. Now the cost is currently free, but these are all my spare workers in reserve. But as I get more workers out, if I produce on a village square, I get workers, the cost goes up. And this is the only top row one where your cost gets more expensive as you go. So let's say I get two workers out, now it costs me 1 power. Another 2 workers, now it costs me 1 power, 1 popularity. Another 2 workers, now it costs me 1 power, 1 popularity and 1 coin. Then, if I wish, I can pay 3 barrels to upgrade once and take 2 coins. Now, upgrading means you can take one of these cubes from any of the top row actions and move it down to any of the bottom. So if I want to make one of my top moves more powerful or give me more options, and one of my bottom ones more cheap, then I can simply take a cube and put it down here. I'm going to make production more. You don't have to stick to the same one, but just because now I can produce on 3, and I'm going to pop that down there, meaning that from now on, to upgrade my player board and move a cube, it's only cost me 2 oil, and I get those rewards still. And once I've upgraded everything, I can still pay 2 oil to get the coins. So we have produce and upgrade. Next we have trade. The building's just in the way of that, but trade lets you pay 1 coin to get any 2 resources or popularity. Later on, if you upgrade that, that can become 2 popularity. If you build the building, you will also get an authority, power when you deploy. When you pay to trade. Then at the bottom you can pay 4 initially metal to deploy a mech. Later on that can become just 2 metal, but that has a double gap, so you'd have to upgrade twice to do that one. So I can make it cheaper once, then twice. Then we can bolster, which is paying a coin to get either 2 power, later on 3, or 1 battle card, later on 2 once we've upgraded. The building here is the monument, and that lets you gain popularity as well when you take the bolster action. Down the bottom we can pay 3 wood initially, but we can take that down to 1 wood. So this board really is quite good for building if you upgrade it straight away. Also, when you build, you get 3 coins, so that's quite a good return. You're paying 1 and potentially only 1 wood, but you're getting a building and 3 resources. So when you pay to build, that's when you would take one of these out, place it onto the board, wherever you like. There is some, wherever you have a worker, there is some scoring bonuses that are different each game that go on the board that give you bonus coins at the end for where you have built your buildings. In this one, if you build next to a tunnel, you're going to get bonuses at the end. Now, you only have 4 buildings, but there are places where you can build next to 2 tunnels, so you could, in theory, have 6 tunnels next to your buildings and get 9 points at the end, and 9 extra coins is quite a lot. So then we've got move, which can become move any 2 characters 1, move any 2 characters 3, or get 2 coins. The building here is a mine, and this is a permanent tunnel for yourself only. So once you put the mine out, your colour can use that to come out of any of the other tunnels on the board that are on the board, not anyone else's mine. And then at the bottom we have pay 3 food to enlist, but of course when we upgrade that, that can become just 2 food and you get a coin. Enlist is the action that takes these from down here and pops them onto the top board. So whenever you take that action in future, you will also get the bonus down here, which is an attack card, but also whenever the player to your left or right takes this bottom action, you will get that bonus as well, and you get an instant bonus. So you could put that up here and say, I want 2 popularity straight away. Next time you enlist, you get, whenever you build, you get another popularity. Next time, you get these instant bonuses up here, remember. So you've done that. If you deploy a mech onto the board, you take one from here, and then your character and the mech and all your mechs get this power. The first one is River Walk, and that usually, unless you're one of the expansion factions, is usually going to be the first one you choose, because on the map, every base game faction is hemmed in by a river after the 3 initial hexes. So you're usually going to want River Walk, unless you have this faction pretty soon. This one also has Seaworthy, which means they can use lakes. Artillery, which means that you can pay 1 power before combat starts to take the power of your enemy down by 2. And Speed. Every single player board has River Walk and Speed on in the base game. River Walk lets you walk across a river to certain hexes with your mech and your character, not your workers usually, because your mechs can carry your workers, but with the blue player they can swim across anyway. And Speed gives you 1 hex per movement. So now when you take movement down here, your character and your mechs can take 2 movement instead of just 1. The other thing to notice on this board is there are stars. When a player gets 6 stars out, the game ends straight away. You get stars for a variety of things, but the first 5 are related to this board. I think it's 5. We'll see, let's check. If you get all 6 upgrades out, you get a star, 1. If you get all 4 buildings out, you get a star, 2. If you get all 4 mechs out, you get a star, 3. If you enlist all 4 recruits up there, you get another star, 4. And if you get all 8 of your workers out, you get another star, 5. So 5 of your stars can be done from this board alone, and you only need 6 to end the game. During the game, you may take possession of the factory, in which case you will choose an extra one to slot on the either end of your player board. I just put it in the middle because of space. And this is really key because it gives you quite a powerful thing at the top here. You may pay 1 power to gain 3 coins, but you may move any character 2 hexes. Of course, if you've got Speed with your mechs and your character, this becomes 3 hexes, and that is huge. It also means that you can now move 2 turns in a row, because you can go from this movement to that movement and back again, and you can just be moving as much as you want and causing havoc. Obviously, every time you have a battle, that's going to cost power, so it's not going to be quite as I've described it there, but that is hugely powerful to be able to move. And these come in all sorts of forms, but they always have the 2 movement as the bottom action. So pay a power to get popularity. If you're not fighting, that's really good. Pay a coin and a attack card to produce twice. Pay 2 coins to deploy and gain power. If you haven't got any mechs out, that is great. And so on and so forth. So that is your player board. Let's get that out of the way so we can look at the board proper. Before we do, we just talk about battles actually. So battles happen with these tiles. There's a track with these tiles. There's a tracker on the board that counts your power. Now, you can only spend 7 power in a battle if you've got it, but this is done secretly. Also, for every mech or character you have in the hex that is being battled over, for example, here we have blues have a character and 2 mechs, you can use a power card. Power cards have numbers from 2 to 5, there's more 2s and less 5s in the corner, and for every character or mech you have on a hex, you can slip one of these in there to in behind to bolster your attack. So here, blue might put 7 because they've got 7 on the power, and the 2, 9. They could put 2 more cards in, but they don't have any, and the white sees that. So the white thinks, oh, they've got 7, so have I. I've got 7 and I've put 2 cards in, so I'm going to put in just my 5, because the worst case is a draw where nothing happens. And so white would win this and blues would all have to retreat to their starting space. If there were any workers in with the blues, then they would retreat as well. But for every worker, whites would lose popularity. So a good strategy I've seen is that people move in for a fight, but they also take their workers with them, because then they're going to lose a multiplier if they win the battle and push the workers back. So that's a really cool strategy. You can get another 2 stars for winning battles. You can win as many battles as you want, but you only get stars for the first 2 you win. Okay, let's zoom out. Have a look at this glorious board. Let's push it up a little bit. Let's start at the bottom. This is your power tracker. 7 is the most you can spend on battle, but you can go all the way up because you can spend power in other ways as well, mainly through encounter cards, or if you've chosen a factory upgrade that gives you lets you spend power. Also, if you get all the way to the top of the power, that is another star. So if you manage to top out 16, you get another star. After you've done that, you can spend and you do not lose a star. Factory cards go here. There is factory cards dealt for the amount of players plus 1. The first player to get their character to the factory right in the middle of the board takes all the factory cards, looks at them, chooses 1. The next player to get their character there, they'd have to battle them out a bit first, looks through the rest of the cards, takes 1. So the slower you are to get to the factory, the less choice you're going to have from the factory card upgrades. Now, to have control of a hex, you either need a building, put them down here so you can see them, a worker, a mech, or a character in them. When you harvest resources, these are the resources that you harvest. You can produce villagers or extra workers, but they don't count as a resource. You put them straight onto the map. So when you're thinking about battling someone, if you push them out, you would take any resources that are there. So say this mech had been here or with a worker and they decide to move off somewhere else, those resources now do not belong to blue anymore. You have to have control of the resources to be able to use them. You can use them from anywhere, but you must have control. Whoever has control of the factory when the game ends, this factory counts as 3 hexes in endgame scoring, and you can build a building on the factory. Let's go around this way. Objective cards are just simply scoring cards. Most players will get 2, and they will give you a goal, an option of 2 goals to complete and get a star. Control at least 3 tundra territories at the end of your go. Tundras are the oil producing ones, and have at least 6 of your tokens, i.e. characters, workers, mech and structures, on 1 territory. A territory is a hex. So you can only, in general, complete 1 of those for a star, but there is a character that can complete 2 of those for a star. Squares that have this little territories or hexes that have this little green circle on the bottom are encounter territories. When you encounter, you take an encounter from the encounter pile and you choose one of the usually very helpful 3 options. So we have gain 2 power and 1 popularity, pay $2 to get 4 power, or pay 2 popularity to gain 1 upgrade and any 2 resources. So they're all quite helpful. You can only choose 1 unless you're, I think it's the white faction, and they get to choose 2 as their special power. We've already talked about endgame bonuses for buildings. This is your popularity and endgame scorer chart. So as I said, once you get past 6, you're into the next level of coins, and once you pass 12, you're into the next level of coins. And again, 18, if you top it out, you get another star on the star tracker. I really like that system because it reminds me of achievements from video games. So let's explain this quickly. For every star you get, if your popularity is on the first level, you get 3 coins. On the second level, you get 4. Third level, you get 5. So if you've got all 6 coins out, stars out, you would get 30 coins just for getting your popularity past 13 and having 6 coins out, stars out. This one is hex control, so for every territory you control, remember the factory is worth 3, you would get 2, and remember control has to have a figure, a worker, a building, a mech, or a character. So you have to have that to control, not just resources. It's 2, 3 and 4, and then for every 2 resources under your control, remember this is controlled, this is not, you would get 1, 2 and 3. You then add that to your existing gold at the end of the game and any bonuses from the building, and the person with the most gold wins the game. Up around here there's also the fighting cards and the distribution of them. So everything you need to know is there on the player board. And that is a basic look at the mechanics and the player boards of Scythe. Let's go talk about how they all come together. It all comes together really, really well. There is so much I like about this game. I love the player boards. I sat down when I first got this, like you do, opened it out, got all the bits out, looked at the rules, and thought I was going to have a major headache getting to know how to play this game. I started out 3 years ago in the hobby, and rule books at first just scared me. I have to say that all the Stonemaier rule books I've read, although on the long side, are clear, concise, and get you to the important concepts quickly. It even says in the rulebook, just set it up and go. And what I found with Scythe and with Viticulture is that the double-sided single player sheet, not player sheet, but rule sheet that they provide is absolutely brilliant and will answer most of your questions. That's it. So the player teaching the game can just keep that beside them. The only thing I needed to check in the rules was specific player powers for the different mechs. Different player boards have different powers for the mechs, apart from the speed and the river walk. The other two are the same. But I soon realised when I was doing that, it says it on the blooming player board anyway. So, it's all there. And that, again, it's the same with Viticulture. Everything you need is there. Not in a way that is overwhelming and is too wordy, but it's just common sense and easy to understand. And I think they're just some of the best rule books I've read. Now, because I have got more competent at reading rule books, don't ask my game group about that. But because I believe, got more competent at reading game books, I'm not saying that a brand new player could sit down, having never played a game before, read this rulebook and know exactly what's going on. But I think they'd have more of a chance than with a lot of medium to heavyweight games. So I think that's really good. The gameplay itself, I love this concept of the first person to get those 6 stars, to get their faction that much influence and popularity, and it feels very much like an achievement system in video games where you're trying to get the most achievements, and it's just so wide compared to the tight goals of Viticulture where you're all trying to make wine to fulfill orders. The goals in here, there's 9 really, because you can do battles twice, so there's 9 different ways of achieving a star. And that's great. And it means you can look at your player board, you can say, right, buildings seem to be really good for me, because if I upgrade it, I can pay 1 wood, which is nothing, get 3 coins back. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get as many of my buildings out as I can. And then you stall because someone comes in and pushes your worker out of the space, and you think, right, well that's fine because I've been doing other stuff as well, I haven't just been producing wood. And there's options there. There can be a bit of a race for the factory, but that's great because who wouldn't want a 5th lane that they can choose from? But this movement of this thing that seems so complicated when you take this player board out and you look at it and you've got all these different icons and all these different recessed slots, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then you've got your faction on top of that. And then you get the wooden pieces out and you start popping them in, which is pleasing, let's be honest about that. And you understand that you're going to be moving those down to make things on the top cheaper, apart from produce, and things on to make things on top more efficient, and things on the bottom cheaper, and get bonuses and getting these buildings out. But it never overwhelmed me, and I was surprised by that. I never felt overwhelmed by my options, because essentially you're just choosing from one of 4 lanes, and you're saying and from up to 8 actions if you only wanted to do one. And in the first few rounds of the game, you're only going to be able to do top row actions. So you're kind of eased in by that. You go, right, what's the most important thing for me to do? Is it to move? Is it to produce? Shall I pay for resources just to get going so I can start using those bottom actions? Or shall I bolster up my power and try and get my popularity up to give me some thumping power? And it just eases you in that way. I think my biggest complaint would be the unavoidable setup time, and yet because of things like recessed holes in the player mats, it is, well, I don't want to say a joy, but it is fun to set up. And what I do when I'm setting this up for new players is I'll set up the map and the cards and everything before they play, but I'll leave their player boards. I won't put the wood into their player boards for them. Sounds a bit wrong. I won't place the wooden components into the player boards for them, because I think that helps you learn in the game. I say, right, you've got your workers, you put 2 out on the board and you're starting 2 places, and the other 6 go across your produce thing. And as you get workers out into the board, that's going to affect the cost of your production. Your cubes go in these squares, and as you upgrade your player board, you're going to make your top actions more powerful and your bottom actions more cheap. You put your buildings in, and so on and so forth, and they start to get the mechanics, even though they haven't even started playing yet. I would say, have I played this with anyone who hasn't played a game before? Well, I have played. I got my brother to play this with me, and I also got him to play Viticulture, and he's played games. He's a fairly intelligent lad, and he destroyed me in Viticulture by almost double. He got that straight away, and I smashed him to pieces in this. Absolute devastation. So I think, particularly because we played Viticulture first, again, perhaps that tighter goal of make wine. And that makes it sound not as good as it is. It's fantastic. It's great to have that, to know what you're doing, and you've got multiple ways of doing it, but there is only one end game in here. Yes, the end game is get 6 stars, but how you do that is your choice. And I think that can be overwhelming at first. But after one game, he's like, all right, see what you did there. Yeah, I'm going to do that next time. And he made some mistakes with placement as well, which you'd expect kind of a new player who's not very experienced to do. Yet, he got a fairly good score, and he hung on in there, and he got a better score than my friend who plays games all the time when he played me. So, you know, it's not impossible, but they might need a couple of games. Components are fantastic. Even the wooden workers are different shapes for each faction, of course. The mechs are different shapes. The characters are individual sculpts. The mechs kind of fit the theme of that faction as well. There's one that looks like a recycled tractor. The blue ones are boats because they are better on the water. Encounter cards are awesome, and they take a different form depending on how many players there are, because if there's just 2 players, you can tear around the map and try and get as many encounters as you can to get those bonuses without worrying about leaving yourself as open. Although now if a player does that when I'm playing them, I'm going straight into their home territory and causing some mischief, because remember, if they've left their resources with just workers on, I can take my mech in there and have those resources. Yes, it will cost me popularity, but I've got their resources, so what do I care? Yeah, so you can try and get those encounters, get those cheaper bonuses, those freebies, but when you add more players on the board, all of a sudden you're like, well, I get that one that's close to me, that's common sense, but they're around there, and I'm not sure I want to have a fight yet. And despite fighting being in this game, I haven't seen an awful lot of fights. I like this system. It's simple. There's hidden information in terms of how you do the dial, and shared information in terms of how many cards you have, how many characters and mechs you have in the battle, and how much power you have available. And I've seen people go, put a note on just so you can have that one, because they've taken a load of workers in with them and they want that person to lose popularity because it's going to affect their end game scoring. If you can't tell, and you should be able to tell because I've already said, I really, really like this game. It's hard to say if I like it. It was hard to say if I liked it better than Viticulture. I think I do. I think I like the open-end nature. It's very, very close, by the way. I think they'll be next to each other on my top 100 this year, and I think they'll definitely be top 10. I think this is a fantastic game. There's the fiddliness is managed in a pleasing way by moving these things down. And by keeping the resources on the map, you're not taking them into your possession. The players who are sat near each one can move it for you. I just think it works. And it's a brilliant game. And the only bad thing I can say about it is that setup takes a little bit of a long time. This is a strong recommendation for me if you like any sort of area control, but with action selection. But able to kind of really, in a common sense way, make that more powerful. I feel like I'm rambling and falling in love at the same time, so I'm going to leave it there and give you my opinion on my 3 categories. And I'm going to add a 4th, actually, which we'll talk about when we get there. So, intimidation factor. Yeah, it's got to be high on this one. There is a lot going on. But like I said, it explains itself at every step, and the fact that I can just refer to this after one read of the rule book, apart from some specific situations or powers, is a testament to that. But that does not change the fact that even I looked at all this and went, wow, there's a lot there. So the intimidation factor is high. Rule book, brilliant. Some of the best rule books I've read. Clear, yes, a little bit long, but because it's well written as well. I'm not saying it's like reading a book, because no rule book is like reading a book, or yet to be, that I've seen. But it is an easy read, and that's important. And the structure of the rule book, the flow, how they've ordered it makes sense, and fun. There is a heck of a lot of fun to be had here. You can see when you're not doing it so well because you haven't got as many stars out, so you can go and start causing mischief with other people. You can just... I think I'd almost have been happy with just this player board, but to have everything else, I'm so weird, I'm sorry, is just fantastic. I think I'd love to see what the expansions are. I have played with one of the factions now at my friend's house. They had the green faction, they had the expansion, and the green faction came out. So that was really interesting because the green faction doesn't have to cross the river to get to the middle of the board. So they were kind of stopped quite early on from accessing the board by one of the other players. And then the upcoming faction with the airships, I mean, yeah, airships, what can you say? Yeah, brilliant. Getting you faster across the board, I guess, which will be really interesting, especially in the higher player counts. Works at 2, 3, 4. I haven't played it at 5 yet, but I mean, the goes are quick. You're just choosing and doing up to 2 actions. So, yeah. Lots and lots of fun. A strong recommendation for me. Up there with some of my favourite games. And we'll have to see where it charts on my top 10 later on in the year. My 4th category is, would I buy it? Or would I have it in my collection? Yes. This is a review copy. This will be going on to another reviewer. I will, at some point, buy this game. And some point soon. There's no doubt about it. Some of the most fun I've had. Thankfully one of my friends has got it, so I don't have to rush, but I will be getting it by the end of the year, no doubt. Should you get it? I would say yes. If anything you like, that you've seen you like, it's a no-brainer. Great game. Thanks very much for watching Board Deck and Dice and me waffle adoration towards this wonderful board game. We'll see you next time on Board Deck and Dice. Just said that twice. Awkward.